Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline studio. I'm Sybil Muschik. Behind the camera is Joshua Blanc. Today we're looking at bells, and not the usual kind of bells, but bells that are naturally formed. Now I have some examples for you. We have a creek not too far away coming out of our lake, and there's a bit of a weir there, so the water is cascading over rocks and things and splashing up onto the little rushes, and that creates, these bells. So that's one example, and that was last year's, by the way, and this is this year's. They're so interesting. So I decided to work with that today. We're going to sort of switch up this whole graphite transfer business. And I've got some examples to show you. So this is just on drawing paper, and it works well for drawings, but it doesn't work so well for when you're trying to transfer, because the paper has a bit of a tooth, and when you're putting graphite down for tone, the tooth sort of picks up all the particles more than you want. So you're better off for transfers to work either with tracing paper or deli paper, any paper that is pretty flat and maybe a bit smoother. I think even your regular copy paper will work for this. So we're going to start off with the drawing, and then we're going to go into tone. So the way to do that, and I will show you the process here. All we're going to do now is add a bit more graphite. I've already done the preliminary drawing, but I wanted to show you how to get a beautiful background just with tone. Now this is an 8B, and I also have 9B, and maybe we'll use the 9B today. You want to get it as dark as possible, and the way to do that is to do little circles. And also, sometimes people do these halo things. Diane Mize talks about halos, so I won't be going into that. That's her latest video, I think. So be sure and check that out. It's really interesting. So to avoid halos, we will just do circles close to what we're, so it's almost negative here. And because I have a fair amount of graphite down already, this will, so little circles everywhere. And I'm not going to bore you with doing circles for a half an hour, because that's about what it takes. So it's just the process, and we have enough tone down here already that it should transfer. And of course we have our little tracing paper drawing. And you want, if you've already done the drawing, so you know how to do the drawing, right? I've taken it from this, I've simplified it. You can change it however you want, make it more bell-like. Here, there's a lot of detail that's fussy and, good for a photograph, but not necessarily for a drawing. So you want to simplify, as I've done. So tracing, now, I find tracing very tedious, but sometimes you have to do it. I can do a drawing much faster than I can do a tracing, because it takes, a really steady hand with fine detail. So you want to get this exact shape. So that does take time. But in this case, it's necessary, because you need everything to line up, as you will see shortly. All this mysterious stuff. Okay, so we have the drawing. Now, it's a good idea to have a little piece of paper as you're doing this. And, now you can, of course, outline everything. I have to some degree, because I want it to be fairly sharp for the transfer. But then I go very close with the circles, and usually you don't, the transfer will show up, but you don't, in the drawing, you don't see it so much. So you can work, you could frame this as well, because it's an original artwork. And then, of course, you'll have all the prints. So this could go quite a long way, for having an image that works for you, for monetary purposes. You could sell the original for quite a lot, and then prints are a little less expensive. Monotypes are, in price, are pretty close to paintings because basically that's what they are with some small variations. So back to our tracing. Now tracing, it's really handy to have a light box, and you just place it over top carefully, and I would probably tack it down with a tiny bit of tape because you don't want it moving at all. Otherwise you'll get little white halos around things. So line it up really carefully. Make sure it works with the drawing underneath. And try not to have things roll off on you. So I'm busy tracing our little drawing again. I've worked with it quite a bit, so we just have to shore up some of the graphite lines. Now, of course, you can work with charcoal. Charcoal makes a blacker line, but today we're going to be working more with tone. And ice is formed. Now, in this drawing, these things are more like little trees rather than rushes, which I thought would be a little more interesting. This could be a rush here. And then don't forget all these lovely little lines and ins and outs. You can shade some of those already. And that's what makes it so appealing is these crystalline structures that are at the bottom of these bell-like shapes. I just keep this so my hand doesn't smudge. The graphite is very black, smudges easily. And of course, if you're working, with charcoal, then it's even worse. So. Now, a little trick that you can do is, where do I put that? We dropped it off the side here. If you want to get an edge on your graphite stick or your pencil, is just rub it on, a little bit of sandpaper. And then be careful you don't touch it because it is quite black. And that will give you a nice point. I mean, this is like a pencil without wood, so you could sharpen it, but that would be very wasteful. So use all the tricks at hand. And you can shade here a little bit. So we're going to approach this in two ways. Now, one is going to be just the sort of graphic drawing, and the other is going to be getting shaded. And that's what's pushing it up a notch, because shading and transfers are a bit of a problem. So you'll just have to learn this process and then try it yourself, and you'll see that it's very worth doing. But you do need these darker, 9B and so forth. Maybe if you can't find a 9B, 8B or 7, those will work. You just have to work extra hard to get it going for you. Okay, we're just about there. I like these little words, they almost like icicles. Some have formed icicles, but in other ways it's just these little drippings that have turned to ice. And here they're starting to form icicles. Now, as I was saying, when the bells form, it's probably when everything's starting to freeze up, because later on, you know, with all the thaws and, you know, different weather systems, the bells disappear. They don't last forever. So it's a really spectacular thing to find, you know, when things start freezing up. And I think we're going to take a little jaunt out today, although it's snowing like crazy at the moment, to see the edge of the lake and how the ice is formed there. So we had a huge storm, and the lake actually froze. Now, I think Josh has taken some photographs of it. If we can't get out there, we will show you, you know, what it looks like. But it's pretty spectacular when a wave actually freezes in sight, right? So that sort of takes care of our transferred tracing. And you might have to go over this thing several times. So we're going to place it now. Remember, with the transfer, the first step is to just put it down, rub hard on the back, and we're using it two ways because I want to put different mediums on to show you the difference between some of them. And it should transfer really well, and it does. There we go. Oops, in the middle here. A little bit more. I didn't draw over a lot of the stuff. You can take it off and put it back on, but then you have to make sure that, and I think that's what we're going to do. Some of it looks pretty pale. So let's just shore some of these little crystalline structures up. So I've redrawn some of the areas that were a little pale. I want this to be quite graphic. And this first one, we're only going to put some medium on, and then we'll print right away. On the second one, well, you'll see. Okay, so I think most of it will do quite well. Up here, I think there's a wee bit of a problem. With the light table, you can see, you know, what is sharp and what's not. There was one little area. This one we've done. This one's okay. We could elongate this line a bit. Yeah, here, right there. Okay, and this one, some of these will fade off naturally. You want them to. Okay, so we put it on here. Now this one you don't have to worry about because it's the first time you're putting it down. So this time, you know, you're taking some of the graphite off, so you're going to have to press quite hard. This one will be a little bit more pale, but it won't matter so much for the next step. Let's put that there. Yeah, let's have a look and see how it transfers. Okay. I think it's pretty good. The main bell is what we're worried about, right? So, okay. So for now, we're good. Now, back to this drawing. Now, as you're working with it, it's very possible that you smudged some of the white areas. So this is called a kneaded erase. It comes like this. And you just tear a piece off. I think I've shown this in previous videos before, but if you're new to the channel, then you'll see me playing with these. They're just cute little animals, and but they're wonderful for picking up. It's really more of a drawing tool than erasing something like a mistake. In most artwork, we don't do that anyway. So again, now just to brighten some areas up, the kneaded eraser will just erase back to white. And you just sort of turn it over, knead it a bit, and erase any areas that you think, she could be brightened up a little bit more. And most of it is the bell, the main bell. You can add a few little highlights on these ones, but don't make it brighter than the main bell. You want all your sparkle to be on this one. And you could add maybe a little more graphite here and there if you're finding that some of the details have been obscured. And then this one, this is all about shading. There's so many tones in this one. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I recommend that you do this on a different surface, not drawing paper. So that when you're shading, it doesn't get lost in all the fibers. But we're after tone this time. So you can mess around with all the different tones. So you could take this down a little bit. Again, do some circles. You don't want these background details to be whiter than the bells. So you just do your little circles. They'll still be visible, but they won't be as bright as these ones. And here you can really go to town with depth. And this was what makes, pushes up your graphite transfers to the next level, because you're going to get all these details in your transfer. So they almost look like a photo transfer, which is kind of fun. And of course, as you're printing them, you can change color. We might try for a blue version of this later on. Now the silver was giving me problems. I think some of these mediums react with the paint in a negative way. I had a lot of disasters trying, printing some of these things. They would sort of peel apart, and it's almost like the mediums are fighting each other. So you'll have to check and try a few of them. Make sure that it's working for you. Now with a stump, if you have a stump, I had one here, yes. This is a drawing stump. So if you have a stump, you can add even more tone. but you have to be careful because it may not print. It will look lovely on your main drawing, but you need a lot of graphite in order to, and this takes off the graphite or it smooths out areas. So we'll see, remember the spot up here where we did the stump, and if that's going to transfer, and I highly doubt it. So you're better off doing your little circles like this, getting the depth, getting the tone you want. I know it's more tedious, but we're gel plate printers, right? So you have to do what you have to do. And contrast is the name of the game. You want really strong contrast, especially against your lightest areas, like the bell here. I'm going to do much more graphite here. Not so it looks like a halo. Remember, that's not a good idea. So vary your strokes, vary your circles. And actually, if you're seeing this on your computer, it's very possible you're seeing the fibers of the paper, which is kind of interesting. Since we took this back area down, you really need to bolster up your black tone so that the bells are prominent. Okay. So let's start on getting the image up on this one. Just put a little bit of, this is my super matte medium, my favorite. And then you just roll out a thin layer. Now, you want this fairly thin, otherwise it takes forever to dry, and also it might peel up in like little spots. Not good. I tell you this from bitter experience. Okay, we have our paper ready to go. And it's a smooth side. This is Oriental paper, and use a smooth side. And we're just going to let that sit. And let's just let that sit for a few minutes. Okay, and this other one, now we actually are putting the tone on this one, and we've got a light box on, so we should be able to see all the different matchups. Now, my hair is probably in the way, but it can't be helped. And you should be able to see through the lines up pretty good. Now here's where you're going for the tone, and it's pretty critical that you line it up. Now you can take it off and put more graphite on and reposition it until you're happy with the result, where there's no white halos on things. So that's all possible. Oh yeah. See the tone? Now, we haven't done that before in graphic transfers here. Okay. And this one is drying. So now all we have to do with this one is, I'm going to put some iridescent medium on this one with a tiny bit of the super matte medium. It will take down, it's all very small quantities. You don't want a lot of medium on there. Okay. And I think that was the big trick, was keep it thin. If you have too much on, it peels up. It makes the skin, if if it's too thick. And then it comes up in chunks. Not good. Right. So we'll place this. And we'll use our paper here. That's only because I've got medium hanging over the edges there, and it messes up my baron. Okay. So we're going to take an interlude now. We'll let this dry for a few minutes, and then we shall see the result. So I'm just shoring up the drawing again, just adding a little more graphite, and I might have shown you this before, but as you're doing the edges here, just put a little piece of paper underneath, and then you can just do this kind of thing, so your edges are really nice, and keep on, even if you're going off. That way you don't have a funny looking edge. I think there was one on the other side. Post-it notes are good because they kind of stay put. I'll use this one for, right here. It's, you get right onto the edge there. Little drawing tricks, they all help. Shows that you know something about drawing, so people will be amazed. Okay. Okay, we've got a small reveal here. This one, where it's only our graphite drawing in an outline form. And we put just our golden medium down, and pretty spectacular result here. Let's put another piece of paper so I've still got there. Then you can see we didn't lose a lot of the graphite at all. Okay, so we put this aside, and this one should have all that lovely tone if we're lucky. And then we can probably take a ghost print to do even more. You won't get much, but you will. Put it on here. And then you can see. See, it's a little more pale because we didn't have so much, and we have the iridescent medium on here. So you can see that, I don't know if the camera can pick up the sparkle. Maybe we get a close-up on it. Maybe Josh will give us a close-up. There's quite a bit of sparkle. Now you can redo this, add more graphite to this, put it back down, and reprint this so that you get a little bit more tone. Remember, you've got everything in registration here. You know, so you can play back and forth, and I might try that actually. Okay, in this one we haven't put the tone down. I have just put an extra layer of tone. We will line everything up. Fingers crossed we've got it right. I'm rushing a bit too. You'll be way more careful. And if you're, doing it on a window, you might have a little bit more view if it's really bright outside. And of course, your drawing is going to be on a thinner piece of paper, which is a good idea. So we have all our tone, and it's awesome. Now this one has a tone, and we need the drawing back that was just the graphite. Okay, let's do something exciting here. Let's do this one in the blue and hope for the best. Now we'll put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. For sure we need the medium, but not much. The iridescent medium also has similar properties, but again, easy on how much you use. We don't want it flaking off. Now this is just a glamour dust deco art. We're going to add just a tad. We don't want to obscure any of the details, so you've got to keep everything very, very thin. So there'll be just the slightest blue tinge. And get most of it off. I've got a little place here where I brayer everything off. Work fast, because if it dries on you, you're definitely going to have a problem. I'm taking off a lot because we're at time crunch and we need to make sure that prints in just a few minutes. Now it's easy to see how to line things up, right? So and you'll be able to place it really well so that there's no halo things. Wrinkles you don't want either. Okay. It will look a bit like a Mori pattern if you're off. It'll sort of look a little like it's, busy. Okay, there we go. So we're just going to leave that for a few minutes. Let it work. And we're going to replace this. We've got most of the graphite off, right? But we actually want a little more on here. So again, and what we'll do is we'll print in silver. Now, wish me luck, because yesterday I had no end of troubles with that one. So we'll take a moment to reflect on things. And a nice little interlude, please, Josh. So we'll work with this one first. We're just adding more graphite and more tone on here, so that's fairly straightforward. Then we're going to add the silver. Or, like the song Silver Bells, it's the season. Now this is more opaque than just medium, so this one you have to watch. And well, we already have some iridescent medium, so I'll leave that, and just regular or magic. We need a little bit of magic here. And you can see the consistency as the paint is thicker, so you're going to have to take off most of it. Otherwise it totally obscures the drawing, which is, the point of the whole thing. So work on getting it to a very thin surface. There, so it should just give us a bit of tone. And then we'll replace this thing. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We've added a little bit more graphite on top, so you can do that. And the silver. And then I think the camera. Now you can see with this second layer, you know, because it hasn't got all the graphite on, you're not going to get as dark a subject. It's almost like a ghost print. So you can go in, of course, and enhance it. So it's not a bad result. You just need to go back into it a little bit. This might be good for pen and ink, like a Sakura pen or something like that. You know, you could add little embellishments. This is all fair game. And there is quite a bit of sparkle and pizzazz going on here, so it really is a beautiful print. You're just going to have to enhance that one. Okay, and this one. So we have the tone on this one. And we have that little bit of the blue sparkle on here. There's my paper. And some of it peeled off. You see what I mean? It's maybe a touch too thick there. But again, you can probably work with that. But the sparkle is quite lovely, and our little bit of blue deco art stuff. This is just glitter paint. Ultra fine glitter paint. So if you mount this on a card and say you have blue glitter behind it, it will be really spectacular. So anyway, give this a try, and we've switched up our graphic transfers. So don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps our channel to grow. Thank you so much for doing that. And then we can bring you lots more stuff, and eventually we'll be able to afford, if we ever get to monetize, we'll be able to afford more art supplies. It's all good. And we love doing it, and to have great fun here at Shoreline Studio. So take care of yourselves, take care of your families, be kind to one another. Bye for now.